Thanks for staying with us here on The Real Story. We're talking housing insecurity, Connecticut's unhoused population and those on the verge, and preventative measures and zoning policy. We're thrilled to get into the conversation this morning with two community and really statewide leaders in this sector, Kara Capone, CEO of Community Housing Advocates, and Eric Harrison, President and CEO of the United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut. Kara, Eric, thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
So we know it's getting cold. We've been talking about how post-holiday it really is starting to feel like December finally outside. You know, the holiday season is starting to take its toll, whether that be emotionally, financially, mentally. More people than ever are without a home or on the verge of losing their housing security here in Connecticut. Can you tell me, starting with you, Kara, what are the needs right now? What are the communities you're serving the most, the vulnerabilities you're really seeing in our state right now?
Well, we have a lot of families and individuals coming in looking for housing assistance, security deposits, even just assistance with trying to pay for applications for rentals. Food insecurity is a big issue. Childcare is a big issue, and transportation is as well. And then also, specific elderly services, because we have a lot more people who are coming in who are elderly and on fixed incomes in need of all of this type of assistance. And so what we'll try and do is we'll work with each person or family individually and really assess what their needs are to see if they need to go into a shelter or if they can stay where they're at if it's safe, and then if we can give them some assistance to keep them in their housing.
And Eric, what are you seeing, at United Way?
Well, it's really, we work with the organizations that are on the ground. So like, Kara was talking about, the Coordinated Access Network is a big partner of United Ways and all the organizations involved with them. But actually, we've been working directly with the municipalities. So they are community service directors at municipalities who work for Town Hall that have that sort of boots on the ground experience as well of the lived experience people are having. And it's really helpful for us to be able to respond to that and listen to those needs.
And Eric, I know United Way has been sounding the alarm, more and more families being under that Alice line, families who earn more than the federal poverty level but are still unable to afford those basic necessities. We've also been reporting a lot of these people who are struggling now are people who weren't necessarily struggling years before, pre-pandemic. Talk to me about what the United Way is seeing and how this plays a role in your response with this kind of group that I think a lot of people tell us kind of gets lost in the middle.
I really think it's elevating the conversation that the Alice population really focuses in on working poverty. And working poverty has always been aligned with the work that we do. It's very important work, but it's also really highlighted that a lot of the funding that we've provided for Alice families has gone into extreme poverty. Some of the conditions we're looking at are people that are falling well below that Alice threshold. So, I think it's really sound the alarm to our organization and to our board of directors that we really need to be looking at extreme poverty as well as working poverty, because they both interplay with one another. And so that's one of the reasons that we've been very responsive to homelessness and housing in recent years.
And Kara, while times are extremely tough, there definitely are a lot of resources out there, as we started with you saying. While we don't have time to get into quite all of them, whether people have needed support and don't know where to turn, think they might not qualify for certain supports, or just need a helping hand, what do you want people who are seeking help or might want to know whether or not they qualify, what do you want people to keep in mind? What are the resources available for them?
Ask. Ask about what resources are available. Call 211 info line. It's a free call. They can help direct you to where you need to go. You can always call Mercy Housing or My Sister's Place to see what resources are available. But there's a variety of different things that are available for people that they just don't know about, or you disqualify yourself if you don't ask. Right? And so I think that a lot of people, we serve people who don't think they're homeless because they're living in a car, right? And, but ask the questions, seek the assistance, because it is out there, it's limited, but if we can try and hook people up with a resource, we absolutely will.
And Eric, I did want to touch on as well the Rapid Response Fund, which is direct cash assistance for bills, mortgages, rent, anything families who might be on the verge of losing their home might need. We'll put some information up on our website as well. But this is the second year you're opening this up, funded completely without the state, because you want to prioritize prevention. How do you think the state can or should turn toward preventative strategies while not losing the important outreach and unhoused aid work as well?
Well, I have to say the governor has been supportive every year that we've launched the Rapid Response Fund. He was just at our press event recently. But we need to leverage funding, and it's not just funding from the state. We need to look at the private sector as well to support as well. I think that's where United Way plays a really important role, because we can bring those parties together and say, you know what, hey, this is a really important issue. And we need equal funding on all parts, and we need people to come around and really help us on this. It can't be one entity solving it. It has to be all of the community gathered around it, and that's public and private.
And do you feel like you are hearing a want or a need to have that kind of multi-level response? I know you were just saying the governor has been supportive.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are different perspectives on it, right? And United Way is not a direct service provider like Kara is talking about in terms of direct service organizations.
Right.
But certainly there are things we need to think about that's going to be preventative of homelessness falling even further. So I think it's been increasing the past 3 years. There are things that are important that we advocate for as an organization, like the child tax credit.
Right.
There could be thousands and thousands of families that are on the verge of homelessness that will be a result of that if the state does not take preventative action and pass something like the child tax credit. So, we have to think a little bit upstream and preventative, and not always rapid responsive to the issues. You need both, but we have to be working in partnership, and I hope that things like homelessness, it's not separate from childcare. It's not separate from child literacy. It's all interconnected. Yeah. And I think the more that we realize that as a community, as a state, the better off we'll be.
And on a state level, we've seen the past few years legislative sessions at the Capitol, nonprofits that United Way is working with or directing people to, and various groups at the Capitol asking for more funding. With such heightened need, we're talking about different categories here, which Eric, you were saying are interconnected, whether it's race, sexual orientation, addiction treatment, mental health services, aid for people with physical disabilities, so much more here. We've been speaking with lawmakers ahead of the budget year. This upcoming session is going to be another one where they're trying to craft a 2-year budget. There is conversation about adjusting or amending those fiscal guardrails so sectors like the state's nonprofit can get a piece of the surplus. Right now they're hitting that spending cap, so they haven't been able to dish out any of that money. Speaking directly to them, to our state lawmakers, Carol, I'll start with you. What do you want them to keep in mind or bring into the chambers, next month, January, when they start off the new session?
Well, I think the fiscal guardrails are really the big part of the discussion. We can't do the services that we need to provide for our folks without the funding to do so and the resources. And so looking at the fiscal guardrails and modernizing them to really reflect the current economic outlook for Connecticut, I think is really going to be important. That's going to be key for them to provide the resources and the services, to provide housing, to create affordable housing, to pay social service agencies so they can pay their folks so they're not eligible for the housing services, right? Because so many of our own staff are now eligible for housing services because they are so underpaid. And that's going to be up to the legislature to determine what that's going to look like. But what I can say is without the fixes, we're looking at cuts, right? Even in years of surplus. And we really need to take a look at this very seriously. There's been other opinions around, we're doing really well fiscally as a state and we should stay on the same path. And I don't think anybody wants to divert from the path. I think we really just want to look at, well, what can we do to modernize what we have so it truly reflects the current circumstances that we're in.
And in our last 2 minutes here, I want to give you both an opportunity to answer this. A lot of times when we speak with people, and I know the past couple years, talking about this work, as we said at the start, a lot of of people who might not have been facing this situation, who are newly, experiencing homelessness or are on the verge, as we said, of losing their shelter, have not been in this situation before. And as you were talking about, if you don't ask, you disqualify yourself from what resources might be out there. But we know for a lot of people that comes with misconceptions, embarrassment, and sometimes fear. I'll start with you, Eric, and then go to Kara. What do you want people to keep in mind or know, and any sort of misconceptions maybe you want to dispel that people might have?
They're advocates for you, right? I think no one. If you look at the ALICE population, the ALICE population is 40% of Connecticut. Yeah. 40%. So we're all sort of in this together, right? We all want to be thriving. We all want to be able to make it paycheck to paycheck. And there are just a lot of individuals that are not. And we just have to realize that is a challenge for this state. And there are preventative measures and policies that we can shift and change that can make us, a lot better in the future. And we also have to think about there are going to be, changes federally as well in terms of funding to social services. So we have to be thinking strategically about that as a state, about what that looks like and how that comes into the whole fiscal guardrail question.
Absolutely. And Kara.
And I totally agree with that. And I think, speaking specifically to the folks out there who might need help, I think the hardest thing that anybody ever has to do is to ask for help. People have pride, they think they're going to be able to make ends meet, but there are resources that are available to folks. And so if you are eligible, ask.
Well, Kara, Eric, thank you so much. A lot of big conversations here, and ones I'm sure we'll be checking in with you next month, before the session starts. So we really appreciate you both taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We have much more to talk about when it comes to housing, from renter protections to zoning policy, affordable housing statutes, voucher systems, and new resources targeting our youngest and oldest, most vulnerable in this housing crisis. We, will hope to be continuing this coverage the start of next month and the upcoming legislative session. That does it for us now here, though, on The Real Story. If you want to watch these segments again, you can head to Fox 61 or download the free Fox 61 News app. Watch The Real Story every Sunday at 10 a.m. right here on Fox 61 and streaming on Fox 61 Plus. Have a great morning.